and welcome to our Power of United Impact podcast. I get to sit here today with a friend of mine, Jeff Jackson, who is the commissioner of the Missouri Valley Conference. And I've been so excited to have you here because I couldn't wait to catch up with you. You and I know you stay busy, and right now is the probably busiest season for you, but I don't get to talk to you very much. So when we get to catch up, I like to learn new things about you and find out what you're into and then figure out how we could partner closer. And so today is one of those days where we get to have one of those conversations, but we get to have it very publicly because I thank you for saying yes to the podcast. We have been spending more and more time with partners outside of our nonprofit network because we do so much as far as connecting across the community. We said, why not start inviting some of the other partners to the table so that we can talk about the many ways we are showing up in collaboration to impact the community. And so before we get started, I'll remind people to follow us where they follow their favorite podcast. And so I want them to like us. So do that first. And let's get to know Jeff. So, as I think about your career and the things I know of it, I know that it spans, quite a few things from administration, and now you're leading the conference and all types of things. But I want you to tell people about it and tell me especially what prepared you the most for this role.
Well, first, thanks for having me, Michelle. Really looking forward to it, and should be a nice conversation. And we greatly appreciate the relationship we have with the United Way.
Oh, we love it.
My background is a little bit different for collegiate administration. For around 25 years, I was a Division I basketball coach. I was a head coach. I was an assistant. The nomadic pathway that coaches go through. I have 3 children. They were all born in different time zones. I've lived in all 4 time zones, and I have been to all 50 states.
Oh, wow.
And that's what happens when you coach all over the world. Now, I say that with a little bit of enthusiasm, but don't bring that up to my wife.
Oh, gosh. Okay. I know it's taboo.
In terms of the travel. But about 8 or 9 years ago, I like to say I decided to go to the dark side. I left coaching, had an opportunity to get into athletic administration. My first role was as a deputy commissioner in the Big South Conference, Division I Conference, and southeastern part of the United States, North Carolina, Georgia, South Carolina. Then I left there, and I had the good fortune of working in the Big 12 Conference, A4 Conference. Had the pleasure of working for a gentleman by the name of Bob Bowlesby. Bob is a lion in collegiate administration. It was a tremendous opportunity to be mentored, a tremendous opportunity to understand how it works. And with coming from a conference like the Big South, which, you broke Division I into 3 tiers, you would have what we would call the low major tier, which would be conferences that are, similar to the Big South. You would have the high major, which would be a conference like the Big 12. And then left probably now a little bit over 4 years ago, the Big 12 to take on this leadership role in Missouri Valley Conference that I was very fortunate to have a chance to take. And it's been great.
Oh, gosh.
It's a tremendous league. We are very fortunate to have one of the most watched, one of the most participated in from a fan engagement vantage point tournament here in St. Louis, affectionately called Arch Madness. Matter of fact, getting ready to get into that in about 10 days.
Yes.
And excited for all the teams. We're having an outstanding season this year, so it should be extremely competitive. But, one of the things we do is we're going to have 1,300 St. Louis school kids on Friday afternoon to have a chance to see some college basketball. And, one of the things that we wanted to do from the onset when we came into the Missouri Valley Conference is we didn't want to just be, for lack of a better way of saying it, just coming in and coming out. Arch Madness has been such a vital component to what the Missouri Valley Conference is, and we think we've also been a valuable asset to the St. Louis community. But we also wanted to invest. So what we call is field trip madness.
Yes.
And we're going to bring those young people by. And, what really is really neat is when those kids see those young people playing basketball, that sometimes is the igniter for them thinking about having a collegiate experience. And if we can just get 1 or 2 of those kids thinking in that way, then we've done a really good thing. So that's just a quick synopsis of maybe my background and some of the things we have going on in St. Louis. And again, why our partnership with your group has been so valuable.
Yeah, I appreciate what you've shared so far because, one of the things that especially drew me to our conversation that we had, and we'll talk a little bit about that later, but the first conversation we had about all this, but it was you talking about connecting young people to, just a broader vision. And I want to ask you more about when you said yes to this role at Missouri Valley Conference, like what were some of the additional goals you had and maybe what surprised you most about taking on this role?
Well, I think a little bit is born out of what you just stated. It's dealing with young people. Now, I used to be a coach, and so that relationship is much more intimate. And there's probably times that I miss that intimacy, but now you're kind of working, you're the setup man. Okay. So for example, one of the things that we were able to do with what we call SAC, which is our student athlete group that represents all 11 of our institutions. And, one of the things about the collegiate experience right now is we know we're in a very, fluid environment.
Okay.
There's much more of a financial impact to these young people's lives. And sometimes the general public starts to think that the academic component and the social component isn't as important. That is extremely untrue. Most of our student athletes, regardless of what's going on in terms of their interactions athletically, as the commercial says, they're going to be lawyers, they're going to be doctors, they're going to be teachers. They're going to be maybe more importantly role models. And so for us to have an opportunity using your company as a little bit as a vessel, to come into St. Louis, whether it's working on a garden, whether it's interacting with young people, whether it's doing packaging, all the different things that you guys have been so gracious to set up for us, it really sinks into almost their ballpark and how they like to do things. Because when you're talking about the type of student athletes that comprise our conference, and you asked one of the things that maybe has been most surprising to me, it has been the fact that whether we're talking about presidents and chancellors, whether we're talking about athletic directors, whether we're talking about our senior women administrators, our trainers, our conference never loses sight of our North Star, which is our student athlete experience. And we know that we have an extremely special group of young people who are just as happy to give as they are to receive. And for us to be able to set up opportunities for them to partake in the former, that's extremely important to them, and that's extremely important to us.
Love that. Love that. And, I want to congratulate you on the success you've seen so far. I was, fascinated by just what, again, I talked about this earlier conversation we had. And so you and I talked very informally about some of the things you were wanting to achieve in taking on this role. And so when we said, why don't we think about community impact? And that was right. I mean, it was already on your page. You said, no, it's one of the things that I want to do. And this sounds like it could be a perfect way. And so that little Ritz Club cigar.
I wasn't going to bring that up.
That conversation we were having turned into something really big and really exciting for the two of us. And I wasn't smoking.
Well, I was going to say, I just want to be clear. There were two people who weren't smoking cigars, and it was me and you.
Right. But we were having a conversation.
Well, it's kind of interesting because, and I'll give credit to Austin Lane is our chancellor at Southern Illinois, and Austin has been a valuable leader to our conference. He's been a great mentor and a good friend. And we were able to get together that night, and he had talked about having a chance to visit with you and some of the other people who were present that evening. And you never know when fruit's going to be born.
Right.
And that's really become a valuable relationship for all of our schools and all of our membership. And it's amazing how things sometimes sprout at the least suspected times.
Right. It was supposed to happen, that conversation. It just planted the seed, and then, they grew really quickly after that. Yeah. So 36 years, Arch Madness.
Yes.
50 years, Missouri Valley Conference, right? Yeah. So you got a lot of milestones to celebrate here. But let's talk about this 36th Arch Madness.
That's okay. Just as valuable. As valuable.
No, Arch Madness. When I think about St. Louis, I'm always correcting people, saying, no, it's Arch Madness.
Somebody told me, and I don't know if this fact is true, so don't etch it in stone. but somebody said it's the second most or second highest when it comes to the community of St. Louis in terms of events that they have that bring people to the community. So it's exciting for us to have a chance to have it here. We've got some great partners. The Enterprise Center, Chris Zimmerman and St. Louis Blues, Todd Mitchell, those guys have done a tremendous job in just making it turnkey for us. We just signed an extension with them last spring, and again, the Blues organization and Enterprise, they're extremely gracious. The fact that we get so much help, whether it's the mayor's office, whether it's just the things that you want to do to make sure that when we're bringing these people to town that they have a very positive experience. I'm always so excited when after the tournament is over, I'm going to get 8 or 10 people while I'm walking around and say, oh man, being in St. Louis is great. We ate here, we did this, we went there, we did those type of things. And so it just creates a type of synergy that you want to have for that type of an event. So 36 years isn't long enough. We're hopeful that we're going to have a chance to double that.
That's right.
I would have long shuffled off this mortal coil before that happens, but we've been really blessed to have what we think is one of the premier championships, sport basketball in a Division I space. And not only do we have the partnership in terms of the St. Louis community, but we're one of the few conferences that actually have our championship on the national broadcast because our games are played on CBS.
Oh, wow.
So it's really just a neat experience. And fortunately, we have the type of student athletes and the type of institutions that are worthy of those type of accolades.
This is a big deal.
Yes.
And I just want people to know, and they probably already know, but I like saying that over and over. It's a big deal. It's a big deal for St. Louis. And I really like seeing how many people come out and are so interested in basketball. And these are people who sometimes aren't so interested in basketball, but this brings St. Louis out. And so I want to compliment you on what I see continuing to build and build. But let's talk about that milestone again. So 36 years. What is it that, what does that mean to you when we talk about 36 years?
I'm kind of the guy who gets to benefit from all the hard work that maybe, took place before I arrived. Because Doug Elgin, who I followed as commissioner, he was the one who I think came up with the concept of playing in St. Louis.
Yeah.
And it was brilliant, because it's a central location. When you look at the Missouri Valley Conference, we have schools in Iowa. As I mentioned to you before we started on air, I was coming from Chicago because UIC had played Bradley last night.
Okay.
We have schools in Nashville. We have schools in, the Central Park State of Peoria. UIC won.
Okay.
They're having their best season so far since they were able to join the Valley, have a very good chance to finish second.
Oh, wow.
Rob Eson, their head basketball coach, has done a tremendous job this season.
Yeah.
It was a double overtime game. So it was competitive, and it was kind of neat. And one of the reasons that we had such an intrigue in UIC is that you had UIC in the Chicago crowd, and then you had Bradley in the Peoria crowd. So the two fan bases are going back and forth. So it was pretty neat in terms of that type of deal. So, those type of things and those type of experiences is what you're always looking for with your student athletes.
Yes. So beyond the games, I think about something you just touched on. You talked about, people coming out and just it being the second largest crowd that's drawn out for a sporting event. Let's talk about economic impact, because I like thinking about that too when we are talking about, our partnership and just the commitment to St. Louis and then the impact that you have.
The impact is in the multi-millions, because you look at the hotel rooms, the patronage to the restaurants, whether it's taking an Uber from the airport, all those type of things. And when you're doing it over a 4 or 5 day period, our fan bases, again, the advantage of being centrally located, we'll probably have in the arena over a 4 day period somewhere around 40,000 people. Okay, wow. So it really, impressive. It's for the sport of basketball. And then, we haven't talked about this, but we'll have that, coming up in the next 10 days. And then 2 weeks later, the Missouri Valley Conference is the host for the first and second round of the NCAA tournament. So we'll be repeating those same efforts. And again, many of the kudos need to go to the St. Louis community, because how the Missouri Valley Conference has been able to be successful with Arch Madness definitely rings to the committee and the people in Indianapolis at the NCAA who make the decision about where they want to park their tournament. So again, St. Louis has a lot to be proud of, because they have a huge stake in our ability to be successful.
Well, it's good that you point that out, because I don't think that just the general public knows that there's a connection there. The way that we show up for Arch Madness helps to lead to making those decisions around where to plant that next round of tournaments, right? And so through NCAA. Let's talk about the NCAA tournament, March 20th and 22nd.
Yes.
Is that what we're talking? Okay.
Yeah, I believe so.
What does that opportunity represent for Missouri Valley Conference and St. Louis in general?
I think it's the latter. I think it's another opportunity for St. Louis to promote St. Louis, because what's going to happen that weekend, and you know, I was at what we call a mock tournament selection last Thursday in Indianapolis, and just looking, and as they're doing and putting teams in, and I'm looking where they're going, you know, one of the things was a little bit ironic is that one of the teams that got to play in St. Louis was actually St. Louis. Okay, which obviously means, hey, we're going to have a lot of people. But what we're always hopeful for, and you know, we can get a little bit territorial and maybe somewhat downright selfish about this, is we're kind of curious to who comes, because, for example, there are certain institutions, because of their proximity to the area, you know, think of the University of Illinois, think of Iowa State, think of Kansas, think of Purdue, think of Mizzou. You know, if those schools are able to play in St. Louis, again, you're talking about creating atmosphere, creating synergy, creating excitement, creating patronage for restaurants and hotels and you know, merchandise sales. The more that you have those teams that are based here in St. Louis have familiarity with, and more importantly, are drivable for those institutions and their fan bases, again, it's just another opportunity to put St. Louis front and center. And we're very fortunate at Missouri Valley Conference that we have the opportunity to be the host.
That's good. It's just a quick car trip away for some people to come down and watch their favorite teams. Let's talk about our partnership a little bit more.
Sure.
The partnership between Missouri Valley Conference and United Way of Greater St. Louis. And, you know, we touched on the fact that we started this very informally, and you and I were talking, and we said, let's do this. But then we got down to business and said, okay, so what could it look like? And through us bringing our teams together, we had some deeper conversations with similar goals in mind. It was really impacting the community, and it was getting the athletes out into the community to make the type of impact that could be meaningful and make a difference. And then we became ultimately your first ever official community service partner. And so this was your vision. You said, hey, you're the first. And so, but it was your vision in wanting to mobilize the athletes in a different way. And I want to talk more about that. Let's talk about, you know, this vision of yours and
well, you know, hopefully it's born from a good place, but I think I would be remiss, because you mentioned it too, is if I didn't bring up our staffs.
Yes.
You have a tremendous staff, and you know, for me, you know, whether it's our Deputy Commissioner Jill Redmond, or we have a young lady on our staff by the name of Kendi Hilliard, who, for example, has been the one dealing with Field Trip Madness. They have done a great job of connecting and bringing great concepts, great ideas, knowing that, you know, we have a finite amount of time to get things done, because it's not like, you know, when we bring 11 athletes from 11 different institutions into St. Louis, they're not here for weeks. They're here for a short window. So how do we best take advantage of that time? And I think they've done a great job of putting them in a position where they can have an impact in the community, not be overly invasive when it comes to their time. And when everything is done, everybody's walking away with a smile on their face. And so, you know, kudos to your group for helping making that happen. But, you know, in my role as commissioner, nothing happens unilaterally. And I think the neat thing about us being able to get this done is the process for us is I take this concept and then I go to my board. And when I talk about my board, I'm talking about the presidents and chancellors who comprise the conference. So Austin Lane, who we were talking about earlier from Southern Illinois. and how they welcomed the idea, how they were excited about the idea, how they wanted to see something like this come into being, was equally as important as the conversations that we were having. And again, I think it's something that, we had some financial things, and I'm talking from the Missouri Valley space, because of some of the things that took place nationally that
Yes.
we had to kind of slow down a little bit. But now that we have to go ahead to kind of revamp, I think, again, we're going to be able to do it. And I hope that somebody in St. Louis sees it. Yeah. Okay, and when I say somebody sees it, we're not looking to do this so that we can get on a television commercial, something like that. I think what you do every day is what I'm hoping to create for those young people who have the championship, the opportunity to come to St. Louis, is that they can impact a life. It doesn't have to be 200 lives. It doesn't have to be 7,000 lives. Hey, just impact that one life that you're dealing with that day. Get them thinking about something beyond themselves, or just something beyond what they were thinking about before they arrived. If we can do those type of things, then we've found a way to be successful.
Oh, gosh. I couldn't have said it better. I appreciate the perspective that you're sharing on it, and your team is amazing, because when the two teams get together, it seems that every time we meet, we add different layers to it. We imagine things in a different way and figure out, okay, how can we make an even greater impact? And so, I think about the athletes, and like I said, them going out and us having a network of over 160 nonprofit organizations for them to dedicate time to. So we try to make it easy to, select what aligns to priorities of some of the players and of the team and the commission. As you think about our way forward and things that we want to do in the near and distant future with the athletes, what are some of the things you'd like to see us help to mobilize them around?
I think the word is more.
Okay.
We've been probably bringing our athletes to St. Louis maybe twice a year. I think with SAC and what I'd really like to get to is if we can find a way to involve, without, again, the word is being invasive, because our athletes are here to compete in a championship.
Yes.
When they're not involved with SAC. But if we can find ways that, again, in that short period of time, it could be an autograph signing line. Okay, it can be, read to succeed. There are so many different avenues that we can do that hopefully doesn't create an issue for them, but allows them to show their other side, so to speak, because we always get a skewed vision sometimes when it comes to our student athletes. That's what we're looking to do. And again, I can't think of a better vessel than United Way.
Oh, well, we are appreciating and loving every minute of the partnership. I think about a few things in what you just said, because the athletes are having a personal experience when they move through, volunteer opportunities or connections like what we're describing, but they're serving as role models and examples for others that are looking to them to be that, right? And so that makes me smile when I think about the younger students that are at the games or that admire these athletes, and they are looking to them to say, you know what, they're doing the right thing. They're doing things that I might find interest in, and they want to get involved too. So I think that it serves to, diversify thinking and to
that's a great term, because in this day and age with everything that's going on athletically, look, we can have an athlete, and this just doesn't pertain to the Missouri Valley Conference or the institutions that make up our league. You can have an athlete in any environment. If something goes awry, it's going to be a front page story.
Yeah.
But, that's one of 800.
Right.
You've got 799 doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing, whether that's in the classroom, whether that's in the community, whether that's in the church. They're all doing the things that allow them to be who they are, that makes them special. And again, the more that we can have an opportunity to do those type of things, the better off we are. And it's never going to totally assuage, what happens when you have that one athlete go awry. But at the same time, you'll be surprised how many people will just always say, hey, so-and-so did this, and, my son just appreciated so much, and those type of things. And that's unbelievably impactful.
Yeah, let's amplify those good news stories.
That's right.
Yeah, and they certainly serve as great examples when you think about some of these things that we're discussing. and they go far beyond just them showing up on the court. You know, as an athlete, it starts to get into, okay, so what's the behind the scenes and what makes up the person? And you kind of get to know a person through their actions. And these positive ones certainly are making a difference. So what does success look like for you between the two organizations? Give me more about that.
I would probably think success looks like a continued relationship over an extended period of time that continues to blossom, continues to grow. You know, the more championship play we can bring to St. Louis, the more opportunities that we have to bring our SAC group in who are leaders on their campuses, where every time it's now an expected in a positive way. Hey, we know on Friday we're doing this with the United Way. Okay, we know on Saturday, hey, United Way is going to bring us some kids and we're going to spend some time with them and, you know, we're going to do A, B, C, and D. And it just becomes embedded as part of our agenda, you know, on an every day, every week purpose whenever we're doing things with our athletes in the community. I think that's the goal, and I think that's a very plausible goal.
I hear you. And the thing that I thought about as we were talking was, you know, when I said amplify, when we are in when we're at the games and we see, you know, that you've got banners across the room with, you know, United Way, and we're on the jumbotrons, and it's helping to amplify and raise visibility around something really good in the community.
That's
and
right.
I mean our partnership and the fact that you are invested in making sure you've got the athletes plugging in greater into the community and being impactful there, that you have thought about partnerships like this. And so you've got this huge fan base. You talked about the 40,000 that move through and watching the games. Those people are being exposed to this partnership, right? In a very
And it's a
visible
little
way.
different than most of the sponsorships that we do because most of our sponsorships are done strictly from a financial basis. You know, we're trying to, we have a product. It's a very valuable product. And so we're trying to see what the ROI is on that product. This one's a little bit more, hey, how do we give?
Right.
Okay, as opposed to, you know, take is too strong of a word, but certainly a big part of our decision making is, okay, so how much money are you going to give us? Okay, where this one is a little bit more like, nah, we needed to find a way in St. Louis where we didn't feel like we were just coming into play and going home. And just, for lack of a better way of saying it, I didn't like the feeling that maybe the only thing we were doing were exploiting the community for its amenities and its population, as opposed to doing something where, again, somebody says, oh, yeah, I know the Missouri Valley, you know, so-and-so did this or they did that, and it wasn't just about an exploit on the court.
Well, let me just say thank you for being as creative as you have been in imagining, okay, so what can we do? And I talked about us continuing to layer. A lot of those ideas have come from you. I know the team has helped to carry out your vision, but you've found ways to bring us more and more to the table and to help us to raise visibility around community impact. And I want to say it's a win-win for the community and for Missouri Valley.
No doubt
Conference.
about it.
So it's like a win all around, in the United Way as well. So that is what I feel the closest to, is when we talk about things like this and talk about ways that we can get more people involved, but the end result will be a better community at the end of the day. Yeah. Okay, Jeff, we have talked for a little while now, and I will say let's continue the conversation offline, because you and I still need to catch up even more. But I hate to say it, but we have to draw our conversation to an end.
Well, no, I enjoyed this, and we will do some stuff offline. As a matter of fact, I was telling, I think it was Frank who showed me in, I didn't realize your offices were here.
Yes.
Okay, because I only live like 5 minutes from here.
You told me this before.
Normally, it looked like it's going to rain. So normally I would have just walked over, but it looked like it was going to rain because I actually live right next to the Marriott Grand.
Oh, so you are really close.
Yeah. So it Yeah. This
I don't
now
think I
now I know
realized
where
you
to
were
come
that
and get you
close.
for lunch. There you go. How about that?
Okay, we will do lunch soon. Let me thank you.
You already
also.
showed me a great spot when we went that day. I'd never seen that place.
What was it? 1111 Mississippi?
No, it was that place that had kind of the museum. And
Oh, 21C Hotel.
yeah,
has
that was
the-
pretty cool.
Yes, they
Yeah.
have. Yeah, we had probably got breakfast or coffee.
Yeah,
at Good
yeah,
Press.
that was really a neat place.
Yes, and they get good food at that hotel.
Yeah.
Very good food.
As now that I've got it
It's
myself,
on your
everybody
radar.
knows I'm not a St. Louis. So
Let me thank you also for the trophy traveled here.
yeah, that's
that
what I was being explained.
It was a very special
And
thing.
that trophy gets around 6 states, all kinds of places. It's a
I
pretty
know.
good
I was
deal.
a little upset because they came and
Really?
collected the trophy right before we had a conversation.
Oh, okay.
Because
So
we
we
were going to
coulda
have
had
it
it here.
sitting
Yeah,
right
yeah,
here,
yeah.
right
Well,
up front.
and I'm sure this happens to you. Sometimes, I actually do control the office. Sometimes the office controls
That's okay.
me.
The trophy had to get to the next stop, but we so enjoyed it. We took lots of pictures with
There you
it,
go.
and so all kind of selfies. So you're gonna see it posted in lots of different places.
Well,
but I can't wait.
I'm really fortunate. I've got a very strong, creative, innovative staff, and they do a great job of just caring about the Valley. I'm blessed that way.
Yeah. Well, congratulations again on the success so far. Good luck with
Thank you.
the rest of the season.
Yes.
And can't wait to talk to you again very soon. We'll grab some lunch or some coffee.
There you go.
I just want to thank people for tuning in, and I know they're going to enjoy getting to know you better as they listen to this podcast, because I have certainly enjoyed the conversation. Thank you again for watching and tuning in. Don't forget to like us and follow us where you catch your favorite podcasts.